Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a drill. This is not a drill. Frank Ragnow is coming out of retirement. That's a real thing. Real thing. Ian Rappaport, Colton Pouncey, all the people are talking about Frank Ragnow is back for the Lions. He's coming back. The Lions interior, the offensive line that we have been complaining about, honestly, all season, just got a lot stronger. One of the best centers in franchise history. One of the best centers in football after retiring early, unexpectedly last summer, last offseason, is coming back for the Lions down the stretch. Oh my lord, this is amazing. For those of you who are blissfully unaware or just need a reminder, Frank Ragnow, at 29 years old last offseason, retired somewhat unexpectedly due to a litany of injuries that had piled up throughout his career to prioritize his health and his family, and just, needed to step away, which was something that we absolutely had to respect. There's no reason, Ragnow had a tough career up to that point, and he was nicknamed shoulders, knees, and toes because he would always pop up on the injury report every week with so many different injuries. He lived a very hard career. And it was somewhat unexpected in the sense that he is 29 years old. He's still very young, and he was in his prime, and this was a move that, you don't see a lot of NFL players that are perennially top 3, top 5 at their position retire before they turn 30. But for Ragnow, the reason it was only somewhat unexpected is because we knew at some point he was going to retire, probably early, due to the injuries that had piled up. We just didn't know when. Last offseason, that date came. He retired. It was after the draft, so the Lions sort of had an idea that he might retire, but they didn't necessarily develop the best contingency plan behind him. And what resulted is, even though the Lions invested in the offensive line, they invested in Tate Ratledge, they invested in Miles Frazier, who is now healthy and back with the team, it was something that they were sort of ready for, but not they didn't have a legitimate succession plan ready, and that resulted in Graham Glasgow being the center. They did try Tate Ratledge at center to start training camp. It didn't work, so they went on to Graham Glasgow, who has center experience, and he was then the starting center for most of the season so far. And that has gone not great so far. Graham Glasgow, bless him, I love him, he's had a good career, but he has just not been very good this season, and part of that might just be my inherent bias going from Frank Ragnow, who was so good, to Graham Glasgow, who is not, whereas he's probably actually at fine, he's mediocre center, but regardless, the downgrade was significant. But the biggest downgrade was in the communication on the offensive line. The Lions having 2 young guards to start the season in Christian Mahogany and in Tate Ratledge. Graham Glasgow was tasked with a lot of the communication that Ragnow had been dealing with for years up to that point, and he just hasn't. There's been a lot of missed assignments on the offensive line. They haven't handled blitzes or stunts particularly well, and so this was the number one area of concern for this team going down the stretches. The interior of the offensive line has not been good. That was seen most evidently against Minnesota a couple of weeks ago, where the Vikings, we know what they want to do. They want to just send blitzes and stunts and cause all kinds of confusion on the offensive line, and they did that to an extreme degree against the Lions. They had Jared Goff rattled all day, and they pulled off a stunning upset win in Detroit. Whereas if we look at those matchups in previous years, Frank Ragnow and Jared Goff were so in tune and so in sync on what was coming, how to prepare for it, that it made it a lot easier on Goff to diagnose everything, because Ragnow took so much of that responsibility off his plate. So now, as we sit, we're going into Thanksgiving. Obviously, Ragnow is not going to play tomorrow on Thanksgiving, but he will probably be back in the fold within the next couple of weeks. They have a Thursday game against Dallas next week, so I imagine he'll come back the week after that for week 15. This is going to be a massive boost for this Lions interior of the offensive line. Ragnow, if he's healthy, if he is as effective as he was last year, and there's no reason to think he will be particularly poor, the communication, honestly, just the level of play, the Lions are going to get a massive boost up front for the stretch run in December, which I cannot overstate how important that's going to be for a team that needs the offensive line to be firing on all cylinders. Because we've seen numerous games this season where the Lions just don't have enough push up front. They can't establish the run. That forces them into true passing situations, and then they can't protect Jared Goff. Jared Goff then doesn't trust his protection. He's skittish. He checks it down too much. He is inaccurate. There was just so many things that were going wrong because of one thing, and that being the interior of the offensive line. So now with Ragnow back, I imagine Christian Mahogany, he's out long-term. Graham Glasgow will likely slide over to left guard. He wasn't great at left guard last season, but Keode Awashika is replacement level. So Glasgow will at least be a mild upgrade on him. And now the interior will start to look a little bit more complete and hopefully play a little bit better down the stretch, like I said. This is wonderful news for Jared Goff. This is wonderful news for Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, basically everyone on offense. The Lions offense should be able to be a little bit more consistent on a week-to-week basis now. And the bonus is Frank Ragnow obviously hasn't played for the entire season, so he's healthy. And that's going to be enormous for the Lions heading down the stretch. They are hunting for the division. They are hunting for a playoff spot. They're not even in the playoffs right now, so this is going to be a big deal, and there's some big games coming up on the schedule into December, and these are going to be very important games that Lions can't afford to drop. So get excited, people. Frank Ragnow is back. Funny enough, though, Graham Glasgow is injured right now, so he's not going to play tomorrow. So I think Tristan Colon is going to be the starting center. That is going to be an experience against this Packers front. We'll see how that goes. Aside from like the general, though, like Goff is obviously going to have his guy back and he should trust the protection up front a little bit more. The communication should be a little bit better. This should do wonders for Tate Ratledge and his development, as he has had some consistency issues this season. He's really struggled with the mental processing up front. He's been good when he gets his hands on guys, but some of the stunts, some of the twists, some of the disguised blitzes that teams will throw at him, he just hasn't been handling them very well so far this season. So having Ragnow in the building again to help mentor him and also just be right next to him, calling things out up front. We know how vocal Ragnow is on the offensive line, and I'm just so excited, man. This is amazing news. So that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be back tomorrow with a post-game video after Thanksgiving. It's going to be a little bit later in the day because it's, Thanksgiving. I got things to do still. So I apologize for that. There won't be a stream tomorrow. I apologize for that as well, but I'll be back tomorrow night. So make sure you have notifications checked so you don't miss any future content. And until then, my friends, cheers.